Hello and welcome to our talk show, Debates in Psychology. I am Hayley Bennett. Today we are focusing on Philip Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment, which was conducted in 1973. The hypothesis for this experiment was to test if evil acts are results of situational factors rather than the personalities of the individuals. Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment is one of the most famous and controversial experiments carried out. Today I am joined by Hugh, Marie and Kim, who will discuss some of the ethical issues that have been widely debated for over 40 years regarding the experiment. Hugh, would you like to start the discussion with your views on the ethics of the study?
Hi everybody, how are you doing? There are no real ethical problems with Zimbardo's study. He ran it through the ethics board and they okayed it. The people that were involved in the study were briefed that they'd be going into a simulated prison environment. It did exactly what it said in the tin. The only thing, unless the participants had lived in a bubble away from society, had never seen a film that had a prison in it, or had never, God, done jokes about how Mr. Big plays hide the sausage in a prison, what did they expect would go on, They had nothing to complain about. What did they think would happen in there? Crochet competitions, tea on the chamomile lawn. It doesn't make sense. Yes, the experiment did get a little bit boisterous, and but that wasn't an ethical problem. It was just a lack of control. The participants signed to say that they understood what was going on, and I can't see what the problem is. They signed to say that there would be certain boundaries crossed, and just suck it up and get on with it. They were quite happy to take the money that Zimbardo offered. What did they, I suppose they thought, well, we're going into a prison, we're just going to be lying in our pits for 2 weeks, not doing anything. And the moment it got difficult, they buckled and, went crying to mummy. It's just, I don't understand it. They had a choice whether they could become a prisoner, or they didn't have a choice. They knew there was an equal chance whether they could be a prisoner or a guard. Let's face it, they weren't abused or anything like that. They weren't shivved in the showers by Mr. Big or stabbed with any metal makeshift knives. Let's face it, they were young middle-class kids that learned a valuable life lesson. A, don't be stupid and commit a crime, or be stupid enough to be caught anyway. B, when you're signing a contract, ask lots of questions, read it. C, when something looks too good to be true, then it is. Don't be a moron. Anyway, Zimbardo, did he carry out follow-ups on these people? Yeah, he did. Did any of the participants have long-term ill effects? No. So there's nothing really that bad that happened. Yeah, a couple of students got scared and cried, and that was about it. And some other professors decided, oh well, yeah, I can have a go at this study and make a name for myself. That was about it. What do you think, Marie?
I think the only reason that study was cleared by the APA was that on paper it looked very different to how it played out in reality.
Many criticisms are that there was a violation of psychological integrity that, regardless of any benefits to society, should not have been conducted for psychology research. The fact that the Ethics Board has been altered since the study of the 1970s to safeguard the subjects in an experiment suggests that there was not enough precautions in place to ensure the safety of the participants. A replication of this experiment would not be agreed by the Ethics Board today. Many have also argued that the consent forms did not fully disclose all the information of the experiment. What is your opinion of this?
They agreed to go into a prison environment. Generally, that means that you get a lift in to the establishment by the boys in blue. I suppose Zimbardo could have gone round to the neighbours and explained, yes, it's a part of an experiment. But the little wimps welched on their side of the contract anyway, didn't they? It was supposed to be a 2-week experiment. They only did 1 week, didn't they? So, you know, when they got home, they had to do a bit of explaining to the neighbours. So, what's wrong with that? Also, they could have got an idea of the stigma attached to being arrested. Plus, you know, let's face it, those boys, well, it would have given them a bit of street cred, wouldn't it? You know, all of the cheerleaders and little babies that had been bullying them for their lunch money before, well, they'd have seen that and thought, well, he's actually a tough guy. But anyway, back to the story. The prisoners, they were hosed down when they got into the prison. They were hosed down and deloused. Well, that's just, again, part of being in a prison. Before you go in, to make sure you haven't got fleas and all the rest of it, they do that. You know, you don't want fleas inside a prison, so that's why they do it. They didn't use real bug repellents and things like that, so there's not really a problem with that. Another one, well, they had cameras and audio devices on them for 24 hours a day. Well, we have a TV programme that does that now, you know, and we don't really complain about that on an ethical ground. Well, I suppose we do, because, you know, Big Brother is pretty pants, isn't it, you know. But, well, I suppose that's unethical, isn't it? You know, they get the mentally unstable in for everyone's amusement, but, you know, it's the modern day bedlam, isn't it? Without the poo flinging, but none of the students were actually forced into the hole. Well, I mean the hole as in the hole, like the little singular cell where they were, you know, not the hole. None of them were pushed around, shoved or punched. They were only coerced. If they'd had anything about them, they could have just said no, and the guards would have been stuck. Yeah, one guard took things a little bit too far. You know, Zimbardo should have stepped in, but the one guard taking it too far wasn't exactly an ethical problem, was it? It was just that one dude. So Zimbardo should have stepped in, reined him in. But because Zimbardo was too close to the experiment, and he played the warden as well as the lead role of the psychiatrist, he got sucked into the, well, fast becoming farce of what the experiment was supposed to be. Possibly the ethics board should have said something about that before the experiment started, but they didn't, you know, so that's the only real problem. The only reason for the Zimbardo experiment becoming what it did, this overinflated monster that, you know, the experiment has become, is because look, Zimbardo loves the sound of his own voice, and he's his own best publicist. Another one, lots of professors who don't have the ability or the brains to come out with their own groundbreaking ideas vicariously attach themselves to this experiment through slating it. Oh, and of course we have the weak-willed students that were involved who were crying and didn't like it. God, just only in America could this happen.
The study was completely unethical. These men were dehumanised by what happened in Zimbardo's study. There's no amount of consent can warrant that. Not only that, they were subjected to extreme psychological distress. They were stripped naked, and on top of this, they were subjected to the humiliation of having been escorted to the toilets 3 times a day. The worst part of all this, Zimbardo just sat back, filmed it, and watched as it went on, and did nothing. He let it continue, albeit for a week.
Although Zimbardo has often been criticised for the ethical issues mentioned before, or not, the long-term effects of the Stanford Prison Experiment have to be considered and are not to be underestimated. The Stanford Prison Experiment has given clear psychological insights about the nature and dynamics of social and institutional control. The crisis in American prisons is well known and shows just how right Zimbardo was. There are over 2.2 million people currently incarcerated in the US, giving it the highest per capita prison population in the industrialized world. About $57 billion per year are being spent on the US prison system, which clearly outnumbers the amount of money spent on education a year. This is only one aspect of the crisis, though. Most shocking is the daily amount of violence and abuse that prisoners have to endure. Instead of trying to rehabilitate these people and provide an environment that corrects them, they are being held in a world ruled by brutality and extremism. This results in the fact that by the time individual prisoners are being released, their return is even more violent, more addicted and disappointed by the system. Zimbardo's findings were not only ignored but disregarded, which is shown by the evaluation of a prison that the court gave at the start of the 1980s, stating that the Constitution does not mandate comfortable prisons, and prisons which house persons convicted of serious crimes cannot be free of discomfort. Only now, 40 years after Zimbardo has made such important and meaningful discoveries, the state is starting to realize that the correctional systems have to be changed in order to achieve something, and that this can only be done by understanding experiments such as the Stanford Prison Experiment and by developing, together with psychologists, a system which efficiently rehabilitates prisoners without the tragic loss of 7,000 people a year.
As you can see, Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment is just as controversial today as it was in 1973. Although there are many ethical issues that have been debated, there have been positive outcomes from this experiment, giving many people insights into how people may behave in correctional facilities. I would like to thank you, Marie and Kim, for joining us today. Thank you.